On December 11, 1936, after just 325 days on the throne, King Edward VIII of the United Kingdom announced his abdication via radio broadcast. His decision would forever change the fate of two young girls. One of these girls was the future Queen Elizabeth II, and the other was her sister, the subject of our story today, Princess Margaret. Margaret was born on August 21, 1930, 4 years younger than her sister Elizabeth. She was the younger daughter of King George VI. Originally, she and her sister, though born into royalty, were far from the center stage of history. However, with their father George VI's succession to the throne, the world's attention gradually focused on the two princesses of Britain's first family. Elizabeth became the center of attention due to her future role, while Margaret found herself in the spotlight because of her radiant charm from a young age. As King George VI's most beloved daughter, she received no less attention than her sister. King George VI never hesitated to praise his younger daughter. He once marveled at how he, being plain in appearance and shy by nature, could have such a lively and beautiful daughter, likening it to winning the lottery. However, Margaret's relationship with her mother was somewhat delicate. Her mother, later known as the Queen Mother, was very conservative and insisted that the sisters be educated at home rather than attending school. Elizabeth and Margaret were taught mainly ladylike subjects such as music and languages at home, so Margaret never set foot in a school. Even their grandmother, Queen Mary, found this difficult to accept. Queen Mary believed that times had progressed and that girls should be allowed to attend school, but she could not persuade her daughter-in-law. Later in life, whenever Margaret mentioned this, she would lament that her mother's decision had changed her entire life. When Margaret was 21, the most carefree period of her life abruptly ended. In 1952, King George VI suddenly passed away, and Elizabeth ascended the throne, becoming queen. At that time, Elizabeth already had 2 children of her own. That year, Margaret not only lost the man who loved her the most in the world but also transitioned from the core of the first family to a member of the royal sidelines. Standing at a crossroads in her life, she may not have realized what this change truly meant for her. She had no time for sentimentality or confusion, nor time to contemplate what she wanted to do with her life. As a princess, it seemed enough to simply enjoy life. She spent her time on 2 things: attending parties and falling in love. The British media's fascination and frenzy over the royal family arguably began with Princess Margaret. Headlines instantly featured her hairstyle, the clothes she wore, and even the color of her nail polish. Even Hollywood couldn't resist the trend and made a film inspired by her, Roman Holiday. In Roman Holiday, Audrey Hepburn's character is named Princess Anne, which was Margaret's first name after her birth. Amid the intense media scrutiny, the princess's previously private romantic affairs also came to light. The revelation unfolded as follows: Queen Elizabeth II's coronation ceremony was the first televised live broadcast of its kind, attracting media from all over. On that day, a sharp-eyed journalist captured Princess Margaret lightly brushing dust off a man's clothes. The next day, news of the princess's romance made headlines in the newspapers. The man Margaret fell in love with was named Peter Townsend, a group captain in the Royal Air Force during World War II, who later served as equerry to King George VI upon retiring. He was understated and steady, earning the trust of the king. Margaret was only 14 when they met, shortly after World War II, when war heroes were highly esteemed. Townsend had also distinguished himself by shooting down enemy aircraft during combat missions. Despite being 16 years older than Margaret and already married with 2 children, Townsend, with his charm, elegant demeanor, and resolute gaze, captured the princess's heart completely. Margaret's close friends noted that men like Peter Townsend were the typical secret crushes of young girls at the time. However, Margaret's mother and sister were conventional in their approach, unable to conceive of Margaret being romantically involved with a married equerry. Initially, they failed to notice anything out of the ordinary in their intimate relationship. By the time they realized, Princess Margaret was deeply entangled in a romance from which she could not extricate herself. In 1952, Peter Townsend divorced his long-separated wife, and the following year, he formally proposed to Princess Margaret. However, marriages between members of the royal family and divorced commoners were not straightforward. The abdication crisis involving Mrs. Simpson, who was divorced, set a precedent against such unions, leading to significant historical repercussions for the British monarchy. Additionally, there was the Royal Marriages Act, which required royal family members under the age of 25 to obtain the reigning monarch's consent to marry. At the time, Margaret was 23 years old, meaning that for her to marry Peter Townsend, she needed formal approval from Queen Elizabeth II. However, both Parliament and the Church exerted pressure on the Queen, particularly the Church, arguing that remarriage after divorce was fundamentally against the teachings of the Church of England. Queen Elizabeth II loved her sister dearly, but as the sovereign of the nation and a prominent member of the Church of England, and considering her relatively young reign, she couldn't afford to alienate both Parliament and the Church. She advised her sister to wait a few more years until she turned 25 and then find a solution. The British government then intervened with a tactic. Winston Churchill himself arranged for Peter Townsend to be posted to Belgium during Princess Margaret's overseas visits, effectively delaying any marriage plans. The passionate couple had to begin a long-distance relationship abruptly without even saying proper goodbyes, lasting over 2 full years. At that time, the British media and public overwhelmingly sided with Princess Margaret. Civilian opinion leaned heavily towards embracing romantic freedom, making the involvement of the church and government seem unnecessary. One newspaper even conducted a poll, and the results showed overwhelming support for Princess Margaret marrying Peter Townsend. During these 2 years, Princess Margaret maintained close contact with Peter, showing a determined attitude never to give up as long as there was hope. 2 years later, in the autumn of 1955, Peter Townsend's term in Belgium came to an end, and Princess Margaret turned 25. The nation was abuzz on the day Peter returned to England. His cheerful demeanour upon disembarking suggested to many that there would be no obstacles to their wedding. Princess Margaret subsequently had several meetings with Peter Townsend, and the media covered these extensively, though there was no official statement on the marriage at the time. However, rumours circulated that if the princess were willing to relinquish some royal privileges and marry in a non-religious civilian ceremony, the barriers to their wedding would disappear. On a Sunday at the end of October 1955, some media captured Princess Margaret attending dinner at Queen Elizabeth II's residence. No one knew what was discussed that evening, but after dinner, everything seemed to change. On October 31st, people across Britain heard a statement from Princess Margaret broadcasted on the radio. The statement read as follows: "I have decided not to marry Peter Townsend out of respect for the teachings of the Church of England and my responsibility to the Commonwealth." Almost everyone speculated that it was pressure from Queen Elizabeth II or a desire to preserve royal privileges that caused Princess Margaret to back down. However, in 2004, a BBC documentary unveiled a declassified government document stating that the Queen and the Prime Minister had reached an agreement. The government would no longer intervene to prevent the marriage, and Princess Margaret could retain her title and royal allowance after marriage. The document, dated October 28, 1955, just 3 days before the princess's statement, added a twist to the decades-old mystery. Could it be that Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Margaret, after unsuccessful negotiations, both made concessions, only for Princess Margaret's statement to be accidentally released prematurely? The answer to this question may perhaps remain an eternal mystery. After the entire Peter Townsend affair, Princess Margaret attempted to emerge from her personal low amidst busy engagements and glamorous parties. However, 4 years quickly passed, nearing her 30th birthday, and there was still no sign of a serious boyfriend. Meanwhile, across the Channel, Peter Townsend, now settled in Belgium, suddenly announced his engagement to a woman 25 years his junior from Belgium. The media clamored for photos and extended their congratulations, with some noting a resemblance between his fiancée and Princess Margaret. Upon hearing the news of Peter Townsend's engagement, Princess Margaret accepted a marriage proposal from another suitor the very next day. This suitor's name was Anthony Armstrong-Jones. Anthony Armstrong-Jones, despite not being of noble birth, came from a comfortable background and had attended Eton College and Cambridge University. His profession was that of a photographer, and he captured Princess Margaret's most iconic photograph. Because Armstrong-Jones had no prior marriages, the royal family approved of their union despite his commoner status. They married in a grand ceremony just before the princess turned 30, and soon after, they had a son and a daughter. In the years following their marriage, they embarked on several international visits, with their 1965 trip to the United States making the most headlines. During this visit, they met various celebrities, not only political figures but also Hollywood stars and rock musicians. The princess relished these official duties, as wherever they went, she became the center of attention, much like a star herself. However, for Anthony Armstrong-Jones, these public duties were highly demanding. They disrupted his ability to focus on photography as he did before marriage, and his social circle was completely disrupted. He was originally adept at socializing and had a wide circle of friends. When photographing subjects, he could quickly establish a remarkable rapport, a vital skill for an excellent portrait photographer. Anthony Armstrong-Jones quickly grew tired of living in the princess's shadow, walking cautiously and conforming to royal expectations. Gradually, he not only withdrew from official duties but also was rarely seen at Princess Margaret's private gatherings. When they married, the princess's friends gifted them a piece of land on a small island in the Caribbean, where Princess Margaret built her villa. This villa, along with the entire island, later became a gathering place for British celebrities and stars in the 1970s and 1980s. Princess Margaret's greatest pleasure was flying to the island and partying with her friends. However, apart from accompanying Princess Margaret to the island once during their honeymoon, Anthony Armstrong-Jones never set foot there again. Similarly, he was absent from many of Princess Margaret's social gatherings in London, where Princess Margaret often attended alone. So, what was her husband doing? Was he solely focused on his career? It was not that simple. It's rumored that Anthony Armstrong-Jones was bisexual and not faithful during his relationship with Princess Margaret. His first child, his eldest daughter, was born just 2 weeks after Princess Margaret's wedding, to his friend's wife. Before dating Princess Margaret, Anthony Armstrong-Jones had another girlfriend whom he promptly abandoned after meeting the princess. During his marriage to Princess Margaret, he continued to have affairs. However, what ultimately led to the breakdown of their marriage was not his infidelity but Princess Margaret's. Regarding the princess's affair, various rumors were circulating, including the Rolling Stones guitarist Jagger being on the list. However, one of the most widely publicized rumors was about a young man named Roddy, who was 17 years younger than the princess and originally worked as a gardener. In the later stages of Princess Margaret's marriage to Anthony Armstrong-Jones, which had essentially become a separation, her relationship with Roddy was not kept secret, and Roddy himself became a public figure. This situation left Anthony Armstrong-Jones feeling awkward, especially as his affair at the time was becoming more intense. Consequently, he initiated divorce proceedings. The institution of marriage within the royal family was considered sacred at the time, with no instances of divorce in the British monarchy for the previous 400 years. Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Margaret, despite knowing this marriage was failing, were determined to uphold the royal reputation. This meant that as long as there was even a glimmer of hope, divorce was not an option for their marriages. However, ultimately in 1978, after 18 years of marriage to Anthony Armstrong-Jones, Princess Margaret's relationship ended in divorce. This was ironic, considering the royal disapproval of Peter Townshend's previous marriage, which prevented Princess Margaret from marrying him. Yet, years later, Princess Margaret herself became the first person from the House of Windsor to divorce. Looking further ahead, divorce among members of the royal family became less uncommon. 3 out of Queen Elizabeth's 4 children have experienced divorce. Let's talk about Anthony Armstrong-Jones again. After his divorce, he quickly remarried, but he maintained a very good relationship with the British royal family. Later on, he took many photographs of Charles and Diana, and even William and Harry. His second marriage also ended in divorce, reportedly due to his infidelity. Now, Back to Princess Margaret. When she divorced, she had a younger boyfriend named Roddy, who was 17 years her junior. Roddy quickly gained fame and quit his job as a gardener to pursue a music career, leveraging Princess Margaret's connections in the industry. He even released a record, although it didn't sell well. They dated for many years, and it's said that even the Queen tacitly accepted Roddy's presence. However, the 17-year age gap proved challenging, and Roddy gradually distanced himself from the princess, eventually breaking up with her one day. The wheels of history continued to turn forward. Starting from the 1980s, the British media's attention shifted from Princess Margaret to Princess and Charles and Diana. Margaret began her life of solitude but maintained her youthful habits. Until the 1990s, she also assisted Queen Elizabeth in some official duties. She devoted considerable effort to raising her two children, both rare artists within the British royal family. She often reminded her son that he was not a prince, encouraging him to work hard and support himself. Despite her efforts, her son's management of a furniture design company faced difficulties, prompting him to sell her assets to barely sustain it. This included Margaret's jewelry and even the Caribbean island property. In her later years, Princess Margaret's health deteriorated significantly. Due to lifelong smoking, she had half of her lung removed and suffered a stroke while bathing, severely scalding her legs with hot water. Her final years were plagued by illness, confined to a wheelchair. In 2002, a stroke triggered a fatal heart attack in her sleep, marking her departure from this world at the age of 71. Born in Scotland and raised in Buckingham Palace, the once glamorous rebel princess lived through an era of personal liberation but did not experience a royal family that was as tolerant, progressive, and modern. Thus, she spent her life in a somewhat poignant manner.